have such sights to show you.
We're Poppin the Scary horror podcast here. I'm your host, Coale, and with me as always, I have Aaron. Aaron, what up?
Howdy doody.
Howdy doody to you, doody.
Doody.
Yeah, so by the time this episode releases, it's going to be close to Valentine's Day, actually. So I have to ask you, Aaron, are there any go-to for Valentine's Days that you typically do whenever it gets closer to the holidays?
Oh, yeah, actually, now that you say it. I usually cry in a bathtub by myself, eating a lot of chocolate and making toast perilously close to the bathtub. One of these years, it's gonna get me.
You live an exciting lifestyle, Aaron. I tell you what, in the life of a bachelor.
Exciting is an adjective you could use.
I did.
Yeah.
I sure did.
That's the most positive thing I can say about that attribution. I would say it's more depressing. But
really?
Yeah, exciting to some.
Yeah, I probably would say I'm on the opposite side of the camp that...
Yeah, what do you do for Valentine's?
Yeah,
what do you and the wife do?
Yeah, so we really don't have any, traditions, except for the fact that we celebrate Valentine's Day not on Valentine's Day.
Oh.
If we do go out, we might go out to, a nicer place, but we don't go on Valentine's Day, because that's like a death sentence.
That's
for
right.
sure, specifically, but we do just exchange small gifts with one another and nothing too crazy or whatever on Valentine's Day specifically. But before then, we may go out and maybe watch a movie or get something nicer for dinner. Not completely 100% upscale, but more than just yeah, let's go. Let's take a route around McDonald's. Whatever. But no, with Valentine's Day, even whenever I was single, and it would make me a little depressed that I didn't have anybody there specifically, there's always something about Valentine's Day, even as a little kid, that I love. But maybe it's just that whenever you're in the classrooms, you got to make the Valentine's box, and everybody was forced to give you those.
School time Valentine's is a superior holiday to adulthood Valentine's.
No, I think that I don't even think that's a hot take.
Give everybody candy, and if you like people a little bit more, maybe give them a little personalized Valentine with a little box of chocolates or something. It's the time of year where you get real anxious to tell your crush about all the spaghetti in your pockets or whatever. But nobody actually confesses their love dramatically on Valentine's. I feel like in school it's just a time for you to have candy and be I love you, pal. Yeah, I love you too.
Yeah.
And that's what we need more of. Because as an adult, I can't just approach a coworker or something and be hey, happy Valentine's, here's a box of chocolates, I love you. They'd be hey, HR, get this guy out of here.
No, so, I think that should become more commonplace, because that's the one thing I do miss that I'm always tempted to buy, but I never do, and it's the Valentines themselves that those companies put out that you just tear it off there specifically, and it's if it's really fancy, it's holographic, has pop culture characters that has a cheesy saying. I mean, if I got one in person at my workplace, I'd probably get a huge kick out of it specifically. So there's definitely aspects to that I like. I'm definitely not too much on the you have to go above and beyond to the moon to proclaim your love. It's I like Hallmark Valentine's Day, where it just vomits pink hearts everywhere specifically. So it's always been a favorite time of year. Plus it's still chilly outside, so maybe that's why I have such a good connotation with it as well.
Yeah. I feel like it's a well-placed holiday, you know what I mean? Because there's a little bit of a barren period there. Because what do you do in January? After New Year's, what are you realistically doing in January to celebrate? Nothing. You got Martin Luther King Jr. Day. You got a parade associated with that, but it's like 30 degrees out. Your balls actually freeze off and roll down the street. And it's not like a particularly like hoorah holiday. It's like, yeah, the government killed a black man. Like, so. So Valentine's Day is some much needed relief, and then you get like St. Patrick's Day, but it takes a long time until people actually feel in the spirit. It's not until like Independence Day in America where people are actually like, woo, fireworks and grilling, like there's a holiday. So people need to put more respect on Valentine's Day's name.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Valentine's Day being like a holiday of love, somehow it's unfitting, but somehow kind of fitting that there would actually be a slasher movie that takes place on Valentine's Day specifically. So, and that film we're watching today is My Bloody Valentine from 1981. And I believe we talked a little bit, like I know it's been a couple of weeks since we last recorded,
Right.
but do you know possibly anything about My Bloody Valentine?
They are a rock band.
They are. They very much are.
That's all I know.
Yeah. But
I don't know anything about the movie.
No, you're good. And I believe this took place before. I'm not sure when the band My Bloody Valentine formed specifically. But this one is definitely from 1981. And it was one that was never really on my radar. I mostly only heard about it because they made a remake of it back in 2009, which, like in high school, whenever it came to like horror movies specifically, at least the group of people I was always around would be like super hyped, be like, oh yeah, let's go check out My Bloody Valentine, it's gonna be sick, bro. Do that specifically. But aside from that, I never really heard anything about it until like I started listening to like some of my horror podcasts where they actually mentioned that it was a really good and entertaining film. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll check it out. And, all right, My Bloody Valentine, by the way, for all you folks, formed in Dublin in 1983, so 2 years after My Bloody Valentine.
The movie.
Yes.
Wow.
Now
we know the timeline.
Yes, absolutely, the timeline.
The Valentine line.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I've only seen My Bloody Valentine, the original one, not the remake, mind you, only once, but I got a sweet steelbook that was released by Scream Factory, so I had to get it, and then I watched it last year for Valentine's, so that was a fun time.
Yeah. Well, I'm just guessing it's gonna be, love and murder kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
For me, anyways.
Yeah.
I used to work tangentially. I used to work in news, you know what I mean? And there's nothing that goes better with love than murder, suicide for me. So maybe that's what this movie's about. I don't know. I'm sure there's some sort of killer and there's some sort of woman. And one of them probably loves the other one. In fact, here's my hot take prediction.
Oh man, the prediction.
I bet the killer is desperately in love with the victim and just is trying to stalk her, and then that stalking turns into murdering.
Man,
am I onto something? I have no idea. I'm just guessing based off the title.
No, I think it's a really interesting idea for you to try to predict based on the title how the movie is going to go.
Yeah, let's see how wrong I am.
Well, yeah,
right.
we're definitely going to see how close you were to your prediction specifically when we're watching 1981's My Bloody Valentine. So we'll be back in a bit.
Woo!
So, we have just finished watching My Bloody Valentine, and Aaron, how close do you think you were to your prediction?
Kind of at the end almost, but mostly not.
Yeah. It was funny because, you hear the title of it, and then whenever it comes to the actual story, I'm sure you weren't expecting a mine.
Yeah, not to mention that very opening sequence. I still don't know what the fuck that was about. But yeah, it opens up, and I was like, these are some miners. and then we watch minors about to have sex, which I'm pretty sure is illegal. But then one dies via murder, and that's definitely illegal. But I didn't know what that was about. But the setting was nice. I did like Mine Town, old, like a tiny small town in mine shaft. Like, that's a spooky setting. I like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And pretty much for those unaware of the general story of My Bloody Valentine, fortunately, it's pretty straightforward. Basically, there's this small town called Valentine's Bluff, where basically Valentine's Day was always like a big holiday for them. But then one day, these miners got trapped in a mine. And mind you, these are miners with an E, not an O towards the end.
There's
there.
a lot of mines in that sentence. You're like, miners in a mine, and mind you, the mine.
Welcome to my mind, where I'm mining diamonds.
Yeah. So they get trapped in a mine shaft.
Yeah. So yeah, they get trapped in a mine shaft, and basically there's only one survivor, and that's Harry Warden, who basically is traumatically scarred because of the fact they were left down there because the supervisors decided to leave them down there without actually checking the methane levels, just to go to a Valentine's Day party. So that's why the next Valentine's Day there was a series of murders that occurred. And so then the town decided not to do a Valentine's dance or celebrate it at all.
Right. Because Harry murdered them all.
Yeah.
Harry Warden was like, you'll never do Valentine's again because I'm salty that you guys left us for dead. And so he started killing people.
Yeah, so the Valentine Bluffs pretty much banned Valentine's Day until years later.
20 years.
Pretty much 20 years after the set of murders, they're like, well, we think time's passed by enough, and so they decide to celebrate Valentine's Day, only to realize it was still too soon.
Yeah. Too soon.
Yes, absolutely. And so, yeah, it does open with the minor sex scene.
Yeah, so weird. There's like two miners, and they're like in gas masks, and you're in the mine shaft. And you're like, oh, this is spooky. What are they gonna find down here? And then the female miner just like rips open her shirt and like pulls her titties out. I mean, she had a bra on. And then she's like trying to take off the gas mask of the other miner, and he's like, no, it's a mystery who I am. And then she's like stroking his trunk, you know what I mean? She's stroking his gas mask trunk, and then he like pushes her up against the wall really hard, and there's a pickaxe behind it, and just like impales her. And I was like, what was that? Like, who is this woman? Yeah. And like, what is... I still haven't pieced together what all that means.
I think it's just supposed to be like a taste for what's to come.
Yeah, but
it's like an appetizer for the film.
What woman would like? Was it just a female mine worker? Or...
I think it was just because they said there's no women allowed in the mine.
Exactly.
So I think that's why she's like dressed up, because it's like, oh, we're not allowed here.
Sneaking in, okay, for a little bit of run. That's one thing about this movie is people will have sex anywhere. Anywhere. Does not matter the surface, the environment, who's around. They're just like, oh, I'm feeling a little horny. Time to fuck in this abandoned mine shaft. Like, just get a room. Maybe.
They're teenagers. They're just very impulsive.
I guess. They're old enough to work in the mines.
Well, different times back then.
I guess
back in 1981.
Back in the 80s. Fucking in the old mine shaft. Small town America's wild, though, so I guess, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whatever.
And so, with the group of characters we have, it focuses mostly on the group of teenagers who decide to still throw a Valentine's party, specifically. And I gotta ask, because there's quite a big group of them before you even invite the group of them. Overall, how did you feel about the teens overall?
There's one, I don't know his name, but the goofball one.
Oh, yeah.
God damn. There's all, it's been a while since we watched a movie where
I
there's
think
a character that's just like untasteful.
I'm trying to think. Is it Howard?
He looked like a Howard. He might have been a Howard. The goofball guy that just like is just like that's my joke. He just could not stop cracking jokes, and they're like, Howard, stop.
On the scale of intolerable, I guess we'll call them survivors or teens. Where would you rank them on your scale? Because I know you have quite a few that were high on the hit list.
He's there's like nothing redeemable about him. He's probably the worst because like the classic, like we kicked off this whole series with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and like Franklin's sort of like the base for me, I guess. But like Franklin was like funny at least in his absurdity, and like, but this guy was just never funny.
I mean,
he's below the guy from Friday the 13th.
Oh yeah.
And that guy was pretty intolerable too. But like, you didn't have to deal with him for that long. But like this guy, you didn't deal with him for like. Because, like, then the party doesn't even happen until, like, halfway through the movie. You know what I mean? So, like, you have to deal with them for at least that first half. And it's just, like, stop.
Yeah. And it's
Get
been...
this guy out of here.
Because he's not even, like, really one of the main characters. Because really, I'd argue the main characters are, like, TJ, Sarah, Axel.
Yeah.
Even Hollis and Patty are kind of more main.
Right.
Because Howard would just come in and be like, whoop, snort a beer.
He did the snorted beer gag twice. And it wasn't funny either time.
Yeah. No.
But my least favorite part was whenever the guy at the bar was like, beware, Harry Styles is gonna kill you, or whatever. And I'm
sorry, I was expecting a Harry Styles.
and then fucking his whole gag is he just pops up from behind the bar and goes and the whole bar laughs. If that happened in real life, it would just be like looking at him like, what was that about?
Yeah, I think I heard like an audible groan from you whenever on the couch. You're like,
that's one of those weird movie pet peeves is whenever like the whole train claps, you know what I mean? At a moment, I was like, that wouldn't happen. Nobody, like, I can disregard all the unbelievability about the killers in this movie or whatever. I have a suspension of disbelief about that. I don't have a suspension of disbelief about fucking bad jokes in the public. Nobody laughs. Yeah. Nobody gives you a titty laugh for that.
Yeah, aside from him, what did you think about the rest of the crew?
The actual characters? Okay, yeah, I thought it was actually, they set up a good balance of like, you know, you have the one plot of the crew with the teens, and it's like Broody McGroody or whatever that went off west and came back.
TJ, yeah.
TJ, and then his girlfriend Sarah, but it's not his girlfriend anymore because she's now going steady with
Axel.
Yeah. Axel. And
rocks ass.
That was like a pretty interesting dynamic. That was cool, you know, that was a storyline. And then you had like the mayor. And I liked the laundromat lady, even though she was only in it for a little bit.
Oh, Mabel.
Mabel, yeah, Mabel was cool. And then, you know, they had the police chief guy that was every small town white police chief you've ever seen in a movie. And, you know, by the end of it, you kind of got a feel for those characters. But there were a lot. Pretty much all the other ones, besides really obnoxious guy, were like fairly not memorable, except for fat mustache guy.
Oh, Hollis, yeah.
Hollis was great.
He was my favorite character too.
Yeah, I liked Hollis, but he was the only one that like felt like he deserved a supporting character role, and the rest were just like random people.
No, for sure. There's a lot of people in this film, which is crazy. It's probably the largest body, really, because even with Scream, even though there was like a large group, you never felt like anyone was.
And they did a good job of like defining who those people were, I guess, just like in quick moments. And like these ones didn't really have defining, like a lot of them. Like I won't name names because I don't know his name. The third person that dies, I'll just say that. No fucking clue where that guy came from. No idea. They're just like, he dies, and I was like, the hot dog guy.
Yeah, the hot dog guy.
I was like, he's walking in, and like you can kind of tell he's about to fucking die, and I was like, he didn't even get a character, and he died.
I think it was like one of the minors, but like not even like has a lot of lines.
Right.
He's like so quiet in the background. You just usually like smile, nod, have a couple of lines, but
seemed like a nice guy, I guess. But I was like, I've never seen this guy before.
I think that's just the trouble you run to whenever you have such a wide cast that you can't spend an equal amount of time without the movie going on way too long.
I also think it's fair to say, you know, without this being in spoiler territory yet, that just a lot of deaths happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of killing before, like, they even notice that the killing's happening. Really, like the wider public. And, and yeah, just I guess they like had all these characters so that a lot of people could die, but like. It also makes it like, yeah, some of these people that were dying, I was like, I don't care about this person. Like, what?
Yeah.
Go ahead and die.
No, absolutely. I think they definitely were just trying to compete with films like Friday the 13th on just body count, which, funnily enough, I didn't actually even know about this until recently, but Valentine's Day in the movie takes place on Saturday, and the day before is the 13th. So it's Friday
the 3rd. That's, I see. I didn't see that either.
So I thought that was really clever of the film just to kind of just... It's not even ham-fisted. It's just like, you know...
Is that actually how the calendar was? 1981? Yeah. That's cool.
Or at least I think so. I'm going to have to pull up a calendar back and...
I'll do that now.
Okay, yeah, do that. But no, I definitely agree with you. I feel like the characters are a lot more likable, aside from people like Howard, again, who is fairly obnoxious and there's no redeeming qualities, but I feel like you're not, like, waiting for them to be like, man, I just want them to die already. But, I mean, the ones that you don't care about are the ones that don't really get developed at all, specifically, and so they're just meant just to be kind of like a stunt for a kill, specifically. And so, with that in mind, the characters that are developed, I would say, are very likable, and that's good. And Hollis was my favorite too.
Yeah.
Specifically, I thought he was great. All right.
It was Saturday. On February 14th, 1981 was a Saturday.
That's awesome.
So the 13th was Friday.
That's so funny that it just kind of coincidentally took place there and was able to kind of have that specific joke there. Because it does definitely feel like it's just kind of joining this booming new genre of the slasher, really. Just like one of the many films that were coming out just wanting a piece of the pie, basically, on how much money could be made from it. But the only thing I would say about characters specifically is, even though I feel like they do develop certain characters, like TJ, like the way they characterize his character, he is so, like, I'm trying to think. He always looks like he's thinking about something, or he's in a daze specifically. And I'm not sure if it's like just the actor himself or if he's supposed to be written that way.
I think he's like, he's almost a little mysterious. I don't know how intentional this was with the script or not, but like a lot of the time there's like a little bit of a mystery of like who this killer is. Is Harry out of jail? Is it is somebody else pretending to be Harry? Is he just a mythical figure? You know, so like the audience is left kind of wondering that a little bit. And yeah, I feel like in parts of the movie you're supposed to think like, okay, this guy just, at least I was in the very beginning, like right from the start, whenever they were like, he went out west mysteriously and now he's back and people are dying.
Yeah.
They didn't piece it together for you that way, but I was like, oh, is like, could TJ be a killer? So I wonder, and then once you have that thought in your mind, and they're doing the whole side plot of like trying to track down Harry, you kind of wonder like, okay, is Harry Harry, or is one of these people Harry? And if so, is it TJ? Is it, you kind of look at all the, is it the barkeep guy? Is it fucking Hollis? Who knows? You know. So I feel like maybe that was intentional. Like they tried to make TJ look a little like brooding and his backstory be a little murky. So you wonder if like, is he the one killing people? But
yeah, so I think that's definitely what it is, because it's like one of those kind of like, they're keeping it up in the air on exactly, they don't really reveal, they just say like, oh, Harry Warden's back, but with Harry Warden specifically, he's always in that miner's outfit, which...
he's got like a gas mask gun, and so you don't like see their identity.
Which, in all honesty, I think it's even though it's like really simplistic, I think it's just one of the coolest designs to have for a killer. Just having that pickaxe and just the breathing and everything. I think there's just like a nice visual aesthetic to it specifically. Like I said, there's a lot that I like looking at this film overall, like seeing that small town of Valentine Bluffs and whenever they do have all the decorations for Valentine's Day, and then you cut to the mine, which it's really interesting about the mine in particular, because I guess whenever they were looking to shoot for the film, they found this mine. It was an actual mine specifically, and they're like, man, this is great. Yeah, we're going to film here specifically. And I guess the town was like really excited that their mine that they had, which I guess had been like long closed already, they decided, man, we're going to make it look really nice for them. So they spent so much money. I think I want to say it's like $50,000 cleaning up the mine, or
Really?
50 or 75, I want to say, cleaning up the mine. And the film crew comes back and they're like, what happened to the mine?
Oh no.
So then they had to spend more money to
Like,
re-dirty it.
That's so funny.
But that being said, I feel like it's really cool to have it. And again, it's just kind of a cool setting overall, because it's like a lot of tunnels and stuff specifically. And
mines are like inherently, because they're inherently dangerous. They're underground. They're dark. You know, it's a spooky setting just without somebody killing people, and then it's somebody killing people. And,
yeah. But so I think it's definitely cool, like setting wise, how they're able to incorporate it into the story. And story wise, I felt like the pace was fairly fine. I never felt like it was too slow. Like there'd be some moments even in like Halloween even where it's like, oh man, this is just dragging a bit. So it would keep an even pace, but it was like it was a jog of a pace. You know, it kept going and stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, it was not too fast, not too slow. It kept it moving along. I don't know that the actual content was like super compelling or anything, but like it kept it going at a reasonable pace, and you were like, okay, cool, next.
Yeah, I'm going on there. So overall, I mean, there's nothing like too crazy original with the story per se. I mean, it is kind of like, okay, there's a killer on the loose and it's in the mine, but at least there's kind of more of a mythos behind it and build up. And again, because you do care about these characters, you are invested in the story, that you do want to kind of see them get out specifically. And having that kind of love triangle between TJ, Sarah, and Axel also kind of adds a little more flavor to it, because those characters a lot of times in these movies are kind of meant to be targets, basically.
Right.
That's their main thing. And trust me, there are definite people that are the epitome of a target, where you can't name a single defining trait about them.
That's honestly a struggle with just writing for horror movies. Is like, how do you develop a character whenever suddenly their character line gets cut? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to be like, yes, let this character grow from the first time you see them to the end whenever they get chopped in half with a pickaxe or whatever. It's like, so it's tough to write characters, but at the same time, it's a lot of bad writers will just give up. And be like,
for sure.
all right. Well, this character is a woman. That's all I thought about whenever I wrote this script.
We give up.
And then she dies.
Yeah. But no, it's like it's a really enjoyable watch for me overall. Like being the second time round, I was kind of afraid, because I had kind of the same feeling of it. I was actually kind of blown away because my expectations were a little low, because you go in like, okay, it's like a holiday horror film specifically that isn't Halloween.
Right.
How good is this going to be specifically? But it's an enjoyable flick. Like I said, my wife and I even watched it for Valentine's Day last year, and she really enjoyed it. It's just kind of like an easy thing, not like the scariest film, but it is like enjoyable, because the deaths they have in the film, I also thoroughly enjoyed the creativity.
Yeah, there's a couple of them where I'm like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and obviously there's some like goofy, campy moments sprinkled throughout, but I think that's just kind of the general kind of, whenever you watch horror, there's always a chance you're going to get a little bit of camp in your film sprinkled in.
Yeah, especially, I feel like those 70s, 80s horror movies, the more we watch, the more I'm like, these are all like, they're not grade A actors. They're just kids reading lines, and so you get some goofy deliveries and some terrible dialogue, and that's fine.
Yeah, no, and I don't ever think like not every film needs to be The Shining where it does that. There's like films like this where you can at least enjoy just the motions of the film specifically. Yeah. So overall, yeah, those are good stuff. Again, trying to stray away from any specific spoilers and everything. So were there any pros or cons you saw from this film in particular?
I think the biggest pro was the setting. We already talked a lot about it. Yeah, not just mine, but like it was a mine town, and so there's a lot of like they do a good job of establishing sort of the culture. It's a small town where everybody knows about everybody, and all the guys are just drunk assholes.
Yeah.
That's the setting. They could get really excited about Valentine's Day because it's the only thing that happens in this town. And their name is Valentine's Bluff. They're finally get to throw a party because everybody forgot about the murder, I guess. So I mean, I like that. I think the plot was nothing special, but I do like that they gave you a little bit of something to hold on to beyond just waiting for people to die, with the love triangle and with a little bit of mystery, kind of where's Harry? What's Harry? And yeah, I think those are the things it did best. I mean, and then I do think you had already mentioned the killer's design, but I think super cool. I mean, just a little bit of and he's just surprisingly sneaky for a guy that has a kind of breathing.
Yeah, exactly.
He's very Darth Vader-y almost.
Very Darth Vader-y.
I feel like it might have been a little inspiration from that.
For sure, yeah.
And he's even kind of, there are moments when Vader's a little sneaky and you don't expect him to be because, he's a giant metal man breathing. This guy's the same way. Sometimes you're like, the breathing stopped. And then all of a sudden he's just like,
yeah.
He was cool. I thought it was strong killer design. Other than that, there's not a whole lot like super special. So I think those are like the big pros for me. I don't think any of the cons are too big of a con, but we have already touched on some of those too. I think the cast is enormous, and you don't really get to care about half the people. It's campy. It's there's a lot of I just think like questionable. It just seemed like how to word this. There's a lot of just moments that seem amateurish. Like I mentioned, the whole bar laughing at the dumb guy's joke or whatever. That just kind of take you out of it, and it's like, it's like it seems like a less than a B movie kind of. You know what I mean?
For sure.
It's just so like the quality just in general isn't there. You can see they go for it in a few shots or something, but then I feel like they even cheese you out too many. One, two, three, maybe too many times where it's like, there's the killer, the camera's going in a spooky direction. Yeah. There's the killer. Oh, it's just the chief or whatever. And it's like, okay, I've seen this like 10 times already.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, and you didn't spook me with it. And they like half-assed the build up, like you know what I mean? I kind of hate it when they cuck you like that. Like,
yeah, for sure.
If I want to get teased and nobody dies, then like I'll go to a strip club. When I get teased, I want somebody to die at the end of it, and so I go to a seedy strip club. So.
Well, I mean, I guess you got your Valentine's Day planned a little bit extra there, right?
Get some candy. And then like the delivery device, we haven't talked about this yet. It's not like super spoilery since it happens right at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
It continues to happen throughout. But the killer like drops off Valentine's Day heart boxes with people's hearts in them. And like I thought that was cool at first. I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. That he like, oh, I'm excited for chocolates, and he opens it up, and he's like, "There's a heart, God damn it, Harry's back."
Yeah.
And then like the fourth and fifth, like the third, fourth time it happened, I was like, all right.
No,
okay.
I actually, it's funny because I like the Valentines. I do think he uses it a little bit too much, but the one that bothers me is the very last one because he. Again, I think it's cool in the fact that it comes with like a little Valentine card on the Valentine heart-shaped box.
Yeah.
And it has like a little like cutesy poem in it, like a simple thing. but basically gets the message across of what he's trying to tell them. The thing that makes me mad is he dropped the ball at the very last one because it's just one sentence that doesn't rhyme.
Right. He forgot his shtick.
Yeah, he was just like in a hurry and stuff, just like,
you didn't stop it.
yeah. You had a party.
I don't like parties.
Yeah, do that specifically. So, and that's just kind of like a minor nitpick.
Minor.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, how could we forget the air horn?
Oh, yeah. There's a part where they blow an air horn and it does not make the air horn sound. And so I don't know if they manufactured air horns differently in the 80s, but it's just like, I don't even know what sound it made.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah. Yeah, and he just does it a couple of times entering a room going, ding, ding. Go.
It's you'll see it.
Yeah, it just, again, it has like special moments like that, so that's why I really think that this film should definitely be watched definitely at least once, and it's especially good like if you need something different for Valentine's Day, even away from the traditional kind of like romance film specifically. It's a fun film to watch.
Yeah.
And I could definitely see myself watching it more times in the future, because it's just, again, it's just like an easy film. You can kick back, relax. You know, we had ourselves a chocolate stout this time round.
We
and
did.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Chocolate for Valentine's
You know,
Day.
it was just like a fun film just to kick back and watch. And again, it never really irritates you to where you're pretty much brought out of the film, because I know a lot of films can be like that with characters or plot devices and stuff where it just drags you out. But no, this one keeps it pretty fair, and it's just a fun time overall.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
There, that one guy's pretty fucking annoying.
Oh yeah,
It
Howard.
brings you down. And there are moments that like will bring you out in like a funny kind of way, because it's like it's a dated film, or or something where you're like, that's funny. But yeah, overall it is just a good time.
Yeah, all right. Well, I feel like I've kind of said everything before spoilers and stuff, so would you do me the honors of letting me know what you rate My Bloody Valentine?
All right. Keeping in mind, 5 is average. I always like to remind people of that. I give it's a 4.
Ooh.
It's
so on the same level as Halloween?
It's Halloween-y to me. So this one has a better pacing than Halloween, but it has the same kind of problem that I have with Halloween, where the plot is kind of a big nothing burger. There's a killer. That's the plot. You know what I mean? And it's like, the killer comes on Valentine's Day. I don't think you necessarily need anything that's more complicated than that, but you have to have something else that's interesting, and there's really nothing else that's very interesting about it.
Okay.
That's probably my biggest gripe, and I can get into the details of that later. But, it's like, the love triangle plot and the finding out who Harry plot is like just it's kind of weak, but it's just enough to keep you going. And so for that reason, I'm not rating it any lower. Whereas some of the a lot of the dialogue is like meaningless and like we're partying and here's a dumb joke from the same guy for the 5th time in a row. And those sorts of things. Some of the kills are creative, and other ones are just like, we killed someone, and that's like and you could tell they're just trying to add to the body count, as you said. So for those, but I do think it's creative. I think the setting's really good and it's a plus. I don't think anything super special about the mythos of the story. It's a storyline that justifies it being a Valentine's Day horror movie. And I mean the killer's cool and stuff, and I don't want to say anything else. I don't want to spoil anything. But overall, like a 4.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm coming in a little bit higher than that specifically because I do have a good time with this thing, and because of the fact that like the mine I feel like is utilized very well, and I feel like it doesn't feel quite as tropey as a lot of horror films do, where I'm like, I feel like I'm watching the exact same film. I feel like this film is overall unique. There are kind of weaker aspects in the fact that it's hard to memorize the characters' names because they're not quite as strong in your face. It's like halfway through, it's like, oh, so her name's Patty, got it, his name is Howard, it's just kind of like, okay, there's that guy, that guy, that guy. But that being said, I still really enjoy this film. So for that, I would come in at a very low 8. For me, just because, again, I think I get excited every time the mind's there. I feel like Harry Warden's design as a killer, even though it's simplistic, just really is iconic. It stands out. I think it's like one of the coolest designs for a killer. And I do, in fact, I'd probably say Hollis is probably one of my favorite survivors
Really?
In the horror stuff. Because again, like
cool.
he's likable.
Yeah.
Like you feel like he's competent. He knows what he's doing. Everything, and especially for a side character that gets axed off, because usually the ones that know exactly what to do are the very lead ones, which is why they escape. And that's not necessarily the case. It's just, again, like, you don't feel like the deaths that happen necessarily, at least a majority of them, have a reason behind it. You don't feel like it's completely like, okay, you're just being super duper careless.
Right.
All of y'all are. So I just enjoy the film, and even though there is like nitpicks what I have with it, it's still up there for me. I mean, it's pretty close to where I put like Nightmare on Elm Street there, because there's like a lot of trade-offs there. Yeah, it's like one of those things that even though I feel like Nightmare on Elm Street has a lot more creativity behind it, there is like a lot more dips and stuff where I'm like, okay, like nothing's going on. I think it's just the fact that it's an uneven pacing there. But I mean, they're still great films overall. That's why they're both above 8 there. But yeah, and like I said, I'm a sucker for Valentine's, so it could be completely biased also. The fact that they pretty much jam-pack Valentine's. You know what holiday it is, looking at all the buildings without people saying, it's Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
It's Valentine's Day. So, yeah, that's pretty much where I would come at with personally. So, yeah. So, you've heard it here. Definitely check it out if you're able to. I know, I mean... Well, let me clarify. Whenever I Googled it, just to make sure show me the Carfax, it was on Peacock streaming, but I don't know a single person that has Peacock.
I've never heard of anybody saying, let's watch my Peacock. You know what I mean? I've heard, let's Netflix and chill. I've heard, let's Disney Plus and thrust,
I haven't heard that one.
Nobody wants to see your peacock cock. I'm pretty sure they used that song for the promos of NBC's Peacock channel, like streaming service. The Katy Perry song. I want to see your peacock cock, your peacock. Yeah.
I didn't know that was an actual song.
That's a song.
Well,
I want to say that. Maybe I'm completely
No. It sounds...
It's a song. I want to say they used it.
It sounds legit. It sounds legit.
Nobody's gonna not take my word for that, because nobody's watched Peacock to know.
No. I don't think there's a single person subscribed to Peacock.
It's a money laundering scheme.
Probably.
It's like NFTs. It doesn't actually exist. NBC is just laundering their filthy drug money.
They just needed a home for The Office.
Yeah.
That it. Anyways, we're going to talk about spoilers here. So I know there's a lot of spoilers here, and as always, courtesy, give you the Valentine of the first spoiler.
The first spoiler, huh? Poor Mabel dies in the very beginning, and her body is stuffed in a laundry machine. Yeah. And the cop is so dumb that it's like he walked in the room and rolled a nat 20 on his perception check to like, do I notice anything wrong with the decorations? Like, yeah, you do. There's upside down hearts. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna follow all these upside down hearts. And then he's like, do you want to check any of the laundry machines? No, I don't want to check the laundry machines. Okay, but what if there's one that's covered in blood? I don't want to look at that. Yeah, there's got to be something with these decorations. He just walks past this laundry machine that's like just blood splattered all over the front. And then he checks the machine next to it, and he's like sniffing the clothes. He's like, something's amiss here. He's like, yeah, right next to you, there's a body tumbling around in a laundry machine. You think you would notice that with your keen eyes. And then he finally opens that one, and yeah, it's just this corpse that's fried from the heat of the laundry machine, just like tumbling around. It's pretty funny. It's like spinning exactly how you would expect a corpse to spin in a laundry machine.
No, it's like,
that's my favorite kill of the movie.
No, understandable. It's like one of those things where it's completely brutal but hysterical at the same time.
Oh yeah.
it's just one of those things where all you could do is just kind of laugh like at how awful it is, but how hysterical it is just seeing that body just
tumbling. But the big thing that I want to talk about that I couldn't talk about before I gave it the 4, but that I do want to talk about because it caps off the story, right? Let's cap off the story here. We've told you about the setup, and there's a guy and there's killing and yada yada yada. The love triangle ends right at the end with you finding out that Axel is Harry Styles, Harry Warden, and he's the killer. And I was like, okay. By the time you start getting towards the end of the movie, I was like, it's got to be one of those two, right? Because they like go into the mine where all the party goers have gone to like party in a mine. 'Cause that's what you do in a small town, I guess. And they found out that killer is here, the legends are true, and they go into the mine, and he's like, let's split up, I'll take this side and you take, and at that point you're like, all right, it's either TJ or it's Axel, right? You know what I mean? I kind of was like, okay, one of those two people is killing everybody else, and you're trying to figure out who, and it turns out it's Axel, and I was fine with all that, and then they completely cucked themselves with like just this flashback of like, turns out Axel's dad was murdered by Harry, and he watched it from under the bed and got like blood splattered all over his little toddler face, and was like, I don't know. And they just like shove all that information at you at the very end through like his eyes. So like, and then the mayor comes in and there's like, it was Axel, and the mayor's like, oh, his dad was killed by Harry, and it was all those kids were like, we don't believe in the legend of Harry. His dad got murdered by him. And they just didn't know. Like, you didn't know that your good friend's dad was murdered by this guy. And they're like, oh, that's just an old boomer legend. Like, that took it out for me. I was like, and then he just like Joker laughs after sawing off his arm. Anyway, I had to get that out of my system.
No, I could tell you were kind of put out towards the end.
Well,
and
it was just it was a wacky sequence. He saw me like, I was like giggling to myself as the credits were rolling, but because it was like that happened, and then he like cuts off his arm and like Joker laughs into the mine, and then the credits roll and it's this like Irish folk song, and they're like, old Valentine's, 20 years had passed, and it's like an Irish drinking song, and it was too much for me. I couldn't do it.
By the way, prepare for Aaron's single of that song released on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, that's how I get the bitches on Valentine's Day.
Just go, it's a Valentine's Day.
Oh, it's Valentine's, I'm gonna kill you with my axe, Valentine's. That's all I got.
It's all good. All right, show's over, people. Show's over.
Go on.
Please get up and exit to your left.
Yes.
And have a magical day.
Yeah.
With the ending, I will say, I feel like that's kind of what I alluded to at the beginning about TJ looking too spaced out and mysterious. I feel like he's too big of a red herring, whereas with Axel, you never have an inkling about him.
Right.
Yeah, you know that he really dislikes TJ because, well, TJ's trying to go after his girl.
And they don't give him a motive beyond, like, he was traumatized seeing his dad killed, so now he adopts the persona of Harry to kill other people. Like, it didn't really smooth that out at all. They were just like, M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end.
Yeah.
It really didn't land for me. I was like, that doesn't add up. Why is he murdering people for Valentine whenever he's like an enthusiastic participant in the Valentine's festivities?
Yeah.
And just like he has this like Jekyll and Hyde thing you didn't know about, and I was like, we didn't show or hint at all, and it's like, it just feels a little cheap to me. Yeah,
understandable. And normally that stuff would infuriate me a little bit more because again, I don't feel like it's the cheapest shot I've ever seen a film do, but at the same time it is kind of like, because I whenever I saw the sequence the first time of like it revealed that's like, oh yeah, Harry killed his dad, and so that made him go crazy to where he killed Harry 5 years ago, but he's still continuing on as Harry because he's insane, but you never get an inkling that he's insane.
And I wish they had just like and maybe they did. Again, this is my first viewing of it, so maybe I missed it. But like, I just wish they had like said something about like
Mm-hmm.
when they're all joking about like, oh, that old wives' tale. If just one of them, instead of having meaningless shitty dialogue,
Yeah.
was just like, shut up, Axel's dad died from it or something. That would have just provided a little context.
No, for
Just
sure.
want to get a little. He's like, Harry killed Axel's dad, and then like,
Yeah.
and he's like, it's fine, I'm not bothered by it. That's just that exchange would have set up like, and then it's like, oh, he really was bothered by it, and he's the killer now. That would have just given me a little something, but they just were like nothing, just bone dry.
Yeah, and coming from me watching it the second time, because I knew he was the killer, I was trying to look for any clues, and it's slim pickings. It's really the only time that I feel like it's ever revealed that he's not quite level is whenever they have that big fight at the Valentine's party, and he leaves, and he has his beer, and he's just like, whatever, screw this, and he like sits down on that spool and then just starts crying. But at the same time, I it's hard to correlate that, be like, oh, there's a mental break, there's that, and not him being upset that somebody's trying to steal his girlfriend.
Exactly. That's what they've been talking about the entire movie, and that's what you attribute all that to. And I would be fine with like looking back at those scenes in my mind and being like, oh, he was actually also upset because of the trauma of Valentine's or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's just nothing there. There's just nothing. All those scenes are directly tied to his relationship issues and nothing about him murdering folks.
No, for sure. And while it is for sure goofy, like the camp is turned up to 11, like, because watching it, the elevator, I mean, it's not even an elevator, the mine carts they have that go back up, and so they like are trying to start in, and they just crawl in, and it's so slow, and they're just trying to crawl, like, it's cool, but then you realize they could just walk alongside it, which they do.
And they could run faster than it probably, but
it's just
it makes
funny
for like a cool fight scene potentially, but the choreography is so bad.
Oh yeah. And so like and even the minecarts are going slow, so it's not even like fast paced Indiana Jones Temple of Doom style speed. It's like regular kiddie land, kind of traveling, because again, it's not meant to go super fast. It's like just a vehicle for miners to get out of the mine, but they spend so much time trying to get that to work, only to then just be out of it. And it's like one of those things that it would bother me more if it wasn't like, oh, that's cool. But it is kind of like one of those things that I'm like, because that's the thing about these films is like with horror films in general, you'll see the critics paint like, oh, that was terrible, that wasn't good at all, and you look at Rotten Tomatoes and it's always like 43% or like super low. And it's like one of those things I'm like, okay, I can't dispute that you feel that way, like you rating it 4 out of 10. I'm just like, yeah, I can understand that. Specifically it makes sense to me. It's just like whenever it comes to entertainment, it just kind of launches it up. But there's a lot of goofy sequences, because you have the minecarts, the shovel pickaxe fight that they did the same movement over and over again, never really tried to change. I died laughing whenever TJ drops the shovel and Sarah just picks it up and hands it to him while he's on the ground, as opposed to trying to swing.
Right. Like so this sequence happens over and over, but this is the one time where Sarah has the shovel or whatever, where like TJ's on the ground and the killer Harry has the pickaxe and is like swinging downwards, as you would imagine you typically use a pickaxe in mine rock or whatever to like murder him. But like this time he doesn't have the shovel. Every time he just blocks it with a shovel that he has perpendicular to it, which doesn't even really make sense to me, because like the pickaxe goes over the shovel.
Exactly. Yeah,
it would still like skewer him in the head, but like they're moving so slow that it's like, Sarah grabs the shovel. TJ's on the ground. He's about to get impaled, and she just like runs over and like bends over and hands him like the handle of the shovel. Like, here's your shovel, sir. And he's like, now I'll block it, instead of like. And it's not like Sarah doesn't fight back, because they're later on in that fight scene, she like bashes him over the head with a rock and stuff. Like, she's trying to be helpful, but like in that moment, she was just like, here's your shovel, sir. Just looked so bad.
Oh, for sure. And after all that happens, then they have the fight in the mine where Sarah hits him with a rock as soon as like TJ's losing a battle, and then as he's about to do the big final strike, then that's the reveal. And then all of a sudden, the whole mine shaft just starts to collapse in on him.
Right. I actually I dug that part of the fight where, because like the whole time they're fighting, he's like wildly swinging the pickaxe and like destroying the support beams and stuff. And they're in this like section that says specifically like danger, keep out or whatever. Which of course the horror movie people walk into that. There's a whole like giant wide tunnel that they had just been in that he could have like walked backwards. As it continued to do, because they were literally just like walking backwards, and he was like swinging and like hitting the wall, and they were just like, they could have kept doing that for 2 more minutes while the people above were coming down, but instead they duck into the one where you literally had to duck and crawl backwards into it. That says danger, keep out. Yeah, this looks like a good spot to get away from this guy.
Yeah,
it's just like, of course. There was a few moments like that where I'm like, of course you're doing that.
Yeah,
of course.
It just started to lose you towards the end there. And so whenever the collapse does happen and the police force arrive, and then they look and they're like, oh my god, he's alive. And then Sarah, of course, is just trying to look for closure because she just realized one of the people she's having difficulty trying to decide who she loves more is alive. And so she just kind of want to ask, like, why did you do this? And he chooses to grab her arm tightly, only to distract her, I guess, as he cuts his own arm off, specifically, because it was a pretty...
Which is so bizarre. Like, I get both of those things happening, but I don't get both of them happening at the same time.
Oh, for sure.
I get, like, he was pinned by the debris, and he's crazy enough that he'll, like a rabid animal, cut off his own arm to escape. I bought that. I also bought that she was reaching down into the debris for closure, and he grabs her because he still wants the killer instinct is in him, and he starts pulling her in. I get both of those things. You can't do that with the same arm. You can't cut off your own arm and forcefully grab this woman because she like pulls out his arm. Like, that's the arm that he was cutting off.
Well, and not to mention, he must have had major like just sawing motions going on because it's like a butter knife, not in like terms of sharpness but of size. It's a tiny knife just doing that to cut through.
And you could say that like maybe his arm got like super shattered whenever the debris fell on it, but then like you wouldn't be able to grip and pull in this woman.
But I mean, that being said, it just kind of just shows like how off his rocker he is as he just like goes on about Harry Warden and starts singing in the distance. And I like the ending. It's just a little silly for me specifically.
I feel like it could have been super creepy, you know, like this guy escapes into the mines and they're never going to catch him now.
Yeah.
And he has one arm and he's destined to kill again. But like it just did not work.
But I do like the fake out end because like whenever it hears them singing as he's running away down the mine and it fades away and it fades to black, you think credits are going to roll. But then there's just that one last like Joker style laugh specifically, which if I was a younger kid, like, and I watched it, that would have scared the living hell out of me. But other than that, it is kind of funny because then it goes into that folk song. So it is just kind of like, it turns up the camp to 11, but again, there's a lot of stuff like kills specifically, like you mentioned, poor Mabel with the dryer. But I felt like the kills like were more unique. I mean, how many times can you say you see someone die by drowning in boiling hot dog water?
That one was just funny. You could see, like, I actually like what they did with the camera. Like, you know, he's getting boiled in this spot, and you can see, like, the hot dogs floating around. That one was just funny. I liked that one.
Yeah. And
I do think some of the kills were just, like, means to it. Even, like, Mabel, the kill itself wasn't very creative at all. He just kind of, like, waited around a corner, and then she, like, saw the Valentine and read the note, and he stabbed her. What was creative is when they found the body, you know?
Yes, exactly. And just how using the chest cavity to hide the next Valentine as a message to the police. So the kills, I could say, are definitely creative. I can't say I've seen it too many times. The one that just blew my mind is I can't even remember the gal's name, but the one gal that was waiting for the other guy to get back with the beer, and the clothes start dropping down, and she's freaking out, and then Harry Warden picks her up as she's screaming and impales the back of her skull on that shower head.
Yeah.
And whenever he comes back, I mean, they don't show it because I'm sure it would have been hard at the time to convincingly show the practical effect, but just show like the bloody water gushing from her mouth.
Yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's just like sort of crazy kills like that, which
Well,
again...
I liked how he was like dropping the coats or whatever.
Oh my god.
They kind of, I mean, that was one thing I think they did well, is they kind of gave you a little nugget of, she was like, how does this work? Because the audience wouldn't know how that shit worked either. And he was like, oh, you just pull this little hook and the coat comes down. She's like, oh, hee hee.
Yeah.
I'm so horny, give me some beer. And then, and then whenever the killer comes in, he's like pulling these coats down, and she's like running, and the coat falls in front of her, and she's like, ah!
Yeah.
And then one of the coats is not a coat, it's him, and he kills him.
Yeah, one of the kills I do have to talk about is whenever the barkeep is so pissed that the kids aren't taking his warning seriously that he decides, I'm gonna scare them. And he sets up that Harry Warden like dummy so it looks like the pickaxe is coming down, and he just gets the biggest kick out of it and does it multiple times. And somehow Harry Warden is already there and it just to replace it. So one of the times he opens it, nothing happens, and he closes it, and then has the audacity to go back and be like, wait, it didn't work. And that pickaxe just went right through his skull, which I feel like the pickaxe
like through his eye, and then he like drug him around the lot by the pickaxe.
Yeah,
that was gruesome.
I kind of wish Minecraft was like that a little bit. Have a mod for that, dragon skeletons with your pickaxe behind you.
There probably is. There's so many
sure.
Minecraft mods.
But yeah, overall, I feel like the kills are definitely creative, and I don't feel like I've watched a lot of films and they feel exactly unique to their own. It's like its own flavor. The only one that I was kind of about is the two lovers that decide to have sex in a dirty mine room because why not? And then there's just like a giant drill bit through them specifically.
Yeah, it was like, how did you manage that?
Yeah, and
how
like,
did you get that drill drilled into both of them while they just kind of laid on top of each other like, penetrate me, baby.
With pleasure. Do that. The one thing I will say is kind of unique is, even though Hollis's death is not super unique, like just nailed to the head and stuff, what is unique is the fact that he actually gets like a moment of being alive, trying to get back to the people, and then just dying. And then you actually see like grief from the survivors, because there's a lot of times where the killers don't know what's going... I mean, the killers, good Lord Almighty, the killers should know what's going on. The survivors don't know what's going on till the very end, but they actually see kind of the dead bodies. I mean, the only time I've ever seen something happen like that is Friday the 13th, where like all of a sudden Alice is finding the dead bodies everywhere. So I can definitely appreciate the pacing and the way they went about the kills.
I also like that, like, so in the beginning of the movie when he is killing, there's a lot of times where he does seem a little omnipotent. Like, how did you know that was...
Yes.
How did you end up there? Like,
for sure.
Like with the barkeep and stuff. But later on, it does kind of, like, make sense. He knows these mines really well, and that's part of what made him kind of scary, is, like, that this guy knows all the secret tunnels and everything or whatever, versus many of these people are just, like, girls down in the mine, like, what's going on? And so that's how he knew to, like, destroy the elevator before they got there, and then like climb the ladder and have fucking
Howard.
Howard
hung a Howard.
Yeah. So those were the moments that I was like, I understand why he's 2 steps ahead or whatever. But yeah, in the beginning, I was already a little bit turned off by that point, because I was like, how did he know to be there? Like, for all the in the town kills and stuff. I was like, okay.
That's a little too like coincidental. I think that's just more stroke of luck. But I do feel like once they get to the mine, you believe everything that happens. Like, even whenever they're climbing the ladder to get out and they find Howard, who's the first one climbing? It's Axel.
Right.
And so he could have been just like, oh my god, he's up here. We've got to go
down.
Yeah.
Right.
The one thing that was funny is, what was your thought whenever you heard like the wood break and the water drown the bubble, and it's like, Axel, it's like, go in for him. He's like, there's no way he survived 60 feet.
Yeah. So I chalked that up to 2 things. One, I was like, Well, of course, TJ's not too thrilled to save Axel.
Yeah.
They've had beef the whole movie. But the other one was like, we don't see him die. I was like, at that point, I was like, okay, it's Axel. Because I think all the way up until that point, I was like, is it TJ or is it Axel that's the killer? Because it's got to be one of these two, actually. And not, I was like, it could just be Harry. I didn't toss that one completely out of my mind. But I was still up in the air between those two. But once that happened, I was like, oh, yeah, no, it's Axel just, like, dropped his helmet in the water or whatever and ran away.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say this. The first time I watched it, just went completely past me. I'm like, oh my god, Axel's dead.
I was like, this is, like, not a super great movie in my mind, but they, like, would have made a bigger deal about Axel's death if he actually died. I was like, I feel like they're smart enough to have done that. So I was like, he's not really dead.
Yeah, well... yeah, I mean, aside from that, I feel like I've kind of hit a lot of the main points again. It's a not super complicated story, definitely not like so much like substance like The Shining specifically, which definitely I don't dock points for. I mean, literally I rated it like an 8 out of 10 just because it's an easy holiday watch that I just enjoy. And so, and again, like if I ever need like that kind of mind ambience, aside from Minecraft, this film definitely hits it because there's just like, even at the very beginning where they have just like the quiet shots there and just the dripping and stuff, it just has such a great atmosphere to it. Any other thoughts you wanted to give to My Bloody Valentine before closing this episode out?
Really disappointed they didn't find any diamonds.
I know, right?
How are they going to beat the Nether Dragon?
Yeah, I know. At least they didn't run into creepers.
Yeah, there is at least one creeper.
You know, just hear, okay, if you hear breathing, run. I don't think that's breathing.
I am actually I thought that was an opportunity. I'm surprised nobody got, like, explosioned in the mines or whatever.
Yeah.
Considering that was, like, the origin of Harry or whatever.
I think they spent all the money dirtying the mines and are like, okay, we'll just have a slight collapse and call it good. Because they did have that methane leak.
They did.
So, yeah. So that's pretty much our thoughts on Bloody Time. Bloody Time.
Bloody Time.
It's a bloody time.
Bloody
My Bloody Valentine. And so now comes the part where I get to tease you about the very next episode we're going to watch. And so this one, we're going to be jumping into a couple of decades later than 1981. And it's one of those things that I hope you bring your best suit for. Oh. Definitely bring your best suit. And I only have one question for you.
Okay.
You like Huey Lewis in the news?
This is American Psycho.
Yeah, we're going to watch American Psycho. Yeah, I figured you'd be excited about that. So thank you all so much for listening to our episode. And be sure to catch our next episode where we'll be Poppin the Scary with American Psycho.
Woo!
Woo!
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm glad you're excited. I'm glad to... That's my Valentine's gift. Happy Valentine's Day, Aaron. It's American Psycho. I've brought you this Valentine's gift.
That's impressive. But let's see Paul Allen's Valentine's gift.
Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Castbox, or iTunes platforms to stay up to date when new episodes drop. To see what Aaron and I are up to, check out our respective Twitter accounts. For me, it is @ColeKirkVA, and for Aaron, it is @AnimalGameDev. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. We'll speak to you all again next time when we're poppin' the scary.